My next guest believes in living in his heart. This is part of our daily practice series. Welcome, Bill Lamond. How did you come to this idea, which seems very dangerous to me, that we should be guided by pleasure?
Well, wait a minute.
Say that.
But is being pleased dangerous for you?
Well, I don't want to use me as a case, but I'm using myself as a listening. And that is to say, how did you come to this idea? Is going towards pleasure for most people a safe idea?
Yes, it's the safest idea because being pleased comes from your heart, not from this thing. We never say your mind's desire. We say your heart's desire. And almost no one in our culture is living in that. Almost no one. Everybody got to be successful, and you've got to be a billionaire, and you've got to do this and that. And some billionaires have killed themselves. And you know Steve Jobs from Apple. He was considered one of the most tough, nasty bosses in the entire world. And then he got terminal cancer, and he became a different person. He opened his heart up. And he apologized. He wrote things and apologized for being the way he was. And he said, oh my God, if I had known that in my life. So for me, pleasure is leading with your heart's desire, not with this district attorney who is always accusing you of something up here. And that's exactly what it's like in our culture. Oh, you're too young or too old, or you're too skinny or too fat or too this or too that. Shut up and talk to the one who really is you. That's how I got to it.
There's a lot of pressure on men in our society to be a certain way. How did you, as a man, allow yourself this opening, this concept?
Well, because when I really look to see who I am, and I really discover that my heart's desire is I want to lark through my life. I want to travel. I want to meet the most fabulous, different kinds of people. I want to meet people of all cultures. I've always wanted to do that. And most of the people that I knew in blue collar, Irish, Catholic, white Philadelphia had no interest in that. And at first I thought, God, something is really horribly wrong with me. But I was a psychotherapist for 10 years and I was great at it. And I could solve any problem. People would come in and I'd embrace them and say, welcome, we're going to get to the heart of this. And then, of course, emotionally, they would throw up on my floor, like, well, I've got this problem and that problem and this problem. And within a few months, all that was gone because I invented a way to do that with clients and was great at it. But on my 10th anniversary of my psychotherapy practice, I had an epiphany and I realized I don't want to live in the world of problem for the rest of my life, period. I just don't want to. And I asked, if you're not going to live in problems and solve them for people, what are you going to do? And then what came up was the image that's so great for me, which is the Olympics. And I thought, what I really want to do is be a coach for people who want to go to the Olympics in their life. And I'm not talking about just athletes, but having the work that they really want and having the life they really want. That for me is the Olympian game that people can play. And you don't have to be coached 5 million hours to get that. You can just declare, I'm done with this hard life. I'm done being unhappy. I'm done worrying. I'm done having that voice accuse me in my head. And now I'm going to find my heart's desire. And at my 10th anniversary of being a psychotherapist, I quit. And I took about a whole year and a half. And I said, what do I really want? I want to operate from my heart's desire. And I thought, in order to really operate in a way that you feel like I finally have the right life, you have to know who you are. And that's big. I don't know if you follow the Hindu religion, but that's big in that religion. First, you have to know you're not an Indian, you're not a man, you're not a woman, you're not a Buddhist, you're not a Hindu, you're not a whatever. You are playing a role that your parents taught you so that you would fit into that culture. But who are you? That's a whole different topic. And I've worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who knew from the time they were children, they were born into the wrong culture because it's not a fit for them. And that's where where no one has gone before, and the adventurers and the people who are living the dream and just pack up their car and move to California. California is filled with those people. Can Meryl Streep play any role she wants to play? Yeah. She's brilliant. And her daughter said that during one of her films, if mom is in a role where the woman has an accent whom she's playing, she won't talk outside of that accent for 4 or 6 months. She just goes into the role. And then I thought, suppose you could create, based on who you really are, the role that would give you pleasure all of your life, and every part of that role would be your heart's desire. And that was a question like this for me. I went, oh my God, who does that? We're certainly not taught to. And it took me about 1.5 years to figure that out. And not only the idea of it, but the technology of it. You need to be able to delete old programming in your mind. You need to actually be able to have conversations with what I call your heart and really find out what people would call it. Some people call it Jesus, some people call it God within them, some people call it whatever. But if you notice, all the spiritual leaders throughout history are often seen with a heart on their chest. If you see pictures of Jesus Christ, heart on his chest all the time, which is the signal for he lives here in the heart. He doesn't live up here in the head. And I discovered something doing that, which is I've never been an intellectual. I'm intelligent. I've always gotten brilliant grades and all of that. But I don't think that way of like up in my head, up in my head, up in my head, because I know that place is like a living hell for most people. And then I thought, what do I do? And I realized I'm what's called a feeling type. All mammals are feeling types. When your baby is born, that baby knows you, not by having intellectual conversations, but because she smells you. She feels your skin. She hears your laughter. She can feel your breathing in your chest. And you can see when you hand a baby who's crying to their mother, and the baby takes 2 seconds and goes, oh, the one with the heart? Everything is fine. And the baby relaxes and goes to sleep and all of that. And I thought, that's where I'm going to live. So I not only moved across the country, but I took up residence in a different universe, which is not the universe of the mind, which is what we train our children to be subject to, but the universe of feeling. May I give you a great example of it?
Sure.
I'm a feeling type. So, you know, some animals can smell a storm coming. They do. And they hide a half hour before it hits. And other animals can feel if there's danger or there's food or whatever. They're not thinking anything like, oh, did I bring my rifle today? They don't have a rifle. They just go with this it's called a natural knowing that comes from how they feel. Oh, the fur is rising on their back. They feel something dangerous. And I realized over time that I'm not an intellectual, I'm intelligent. But I get everything from that feeling type. And I guess you could call me a big mammal. That's all there, you know. You could, you know, some people say, oh, you're such an enlightened being. And I said, well, no more than a bear or a dog or a whatever. In that way, we're given that gift. And it locates us here in the center of our well-being. And I can tell you, I lived in New York for a time, and I love Central Park. Of course, everyone does. And I met a buddy of mine every single night for weeks and weeks and weeks. And about a half hour before sunset, we'd meet up at the park, and we'd go for a long walk, and we'd go to the place called the Ramble, which is a place that they've kept natural and wild. They haven't put park benches and pots and flowers. And I loved going there because where in New York can you find a place like being out in the woods? And we'd go to the Ramble, and then after sunset, we'd come back out before it got too dark, and that was great. One evening, I'm walking over 57th Street, passing the Plaza Hotel to the gate where we go into the park. And I feel it's like a person giving me a loud broadcast. We interrupt this program for, you know how they do that? We interrupt this program, and it just said, do not go into the park tonight. And I just went, what? And I turned around and looked to see who was behind me. There was no one behind me. And it said it 2 or 3 times. I'm telling you, do not go into the park tonight. And so when I got to the gate, I said to my friend, I just feel inside I'm not supposed to go to the park tonight. He said, oh, don't worry. Let's walk down to the river. We're close to that. Let's walk down Park Avenue, and all the flowers are in bloom. And we did. Next morning in the New York Post, headlines like this, about 7 inches tall, person brutally murdered in the park that night. Somehow I knew it. And I stayed out of the park, and I didn't get murdered. On the other hand, with my ex-wife Diane, we went up to Mount Shasta here in California, and they were renting sleds. And I said, geez, I haven't sledded since a kid. Let's go sledding. And we climbed up the big hill, and the trees at the bottom looked about this big. I didn't realize, of course, what they were redwood trees, which are not this big. They are this big.
Yeah.
So we got on the sled and I sat on it and she got between my legs so I could wrap them around her so she would be safe. And we started down the hill, and then the hill was so steep, we were going fast, 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 fast. And I didn't know what to do because I had never gone that fast as a kid. And before I know it, what's in front of me? A gigantic redwood tree. And I thought, oh my Lord, if I keep going this way, Diane's face will hit that tree first and she'll be killed. And it was one of the scariest moments I've ever had in my life. And here's the thing I didn't say. When I was up at the top of the hill before we came down, I heard this thing in me say, turn your sled 2 to 4 inches to the left or the right so that you'll be safe. And you know how the mind goes, oh, get out, it's only 2 inches. But of course, if you're going 800 or 900 yards, that 2 inches turns into many feet. And so I said, I don't need to do that. We crashed into the tree. I stuck my leg out around my wife's body. I flat-footed the tree. I broke my leg. I've had pain on and off for 30 years because of that, because it tilted the pelvis out. One leg is shorter than the other. I heard it and I ignored it. And I invite every one of the people who might be seeing this right now to, times you've done that. God, I knew exactly what to do. And then this thing started to talk to me and I stopped doing it. And
I want to stop you for the moment because, the vessel of listening, I think what my strength is understanding that the vessel can take a lot, but it has to be filled very slowly to take it all in.
Good.
So let's go back to a couple of places before we get to, because this is at least a lifelong conversation that we're having. So let's go to a couple of places. I want to ask you questions like, don't you need money to just pay attention to your heart? I mean, you're saying no, but I want you to really answer the question for the person who has that question. Don't you really need money to be able to think this freely?
No, I don't need money to be able to think that freely. But here's the other thing. I followed my heart and I discovered a guru who is considered like Jesus in India. He's done miracles. He's raised people from the dead. He's done all sorts of things. Millions of Indians come and see him each year. And you can't it's not like getting an appointment. It's like trying to get an appointment with the Pope. Good luck. So anyway, my wife and I went to see him and millions come to see him. And he walks through the crowds and he'll stop and he'll go, oh, I want to see you and your family. Please come in. And there's no way you can do anything else with him. So when he first walked out of we were staying 2 weeks. When he first walked out,
say the name of the person you're speaking about?
His name is Satya Sai Baba. He's gone now. He died at age 89 or 93. One of the sweetest and most delightful human beings I've ever met. And he used to walk through the crowd and he'd go like this, and ash would come out of his hands, which is considered sacred in India. And he'd give it to people to cure their diseases. So anyway, the first time we were lining up to see him come out, I thought to myself, the people in here act like they're coming to see Mick Jagger or something in the 70s, like a big rock and roll star, or maybe, Shania Twain or something, and they're going to run up to them and get their autograph and tear a piece of their dress off and all of that. People do wild things to people who are like that. And I said, I'm not doing that. I didn't come here for him. I came here to open this. So every day and this is funny, every day they pick a new line to be in. I was at the back of the lines every day for 2 weeks, except one day, the last day. And I thought, I don't need to look at him. I can feel him. I'm a feeling type. I can feel him. If you can't feel him, you're dead. That's the way I would say, because he's got this aura that psychics have said they can't find the end of his aura. It's so large. So I thought, I'm going to do that. Every day I meditated and I let him do what he was doing. And I thought, I can feel his presence because I'm a feeling type. And I could feel the energy. And finally, on the last morning when Diane and I were going to leave, at lunchtime, I was given a seat right up front. And I thought, oh my gosh, how does that work, And I thought, I don't care. I'm not going to go, oh, pay attention to me. And I came all this way. I'm not going to do it. I didn't come here for him. I came here to find this. So I put my head down and I began to meditate it. And then there was a moment where I heard in my heart, I guess, or my mind, the same thing I heard regarding into Central Park with that murder that I talked about, which I heard a voice say, it's okay to look at me now. I went, what? And I looked up and he was standing there looking at me. And he smiled at me and he said, "Oh, very happy." And then he walked on, and I thought, well, I got my little interview with him and I saw him, had a personal connection. Then he turned around, which he was famous for doing, and said, "Oh, by the way, when are you leaving?" I said, "In a couple of hours after lunch." He said, "You should have a private interview with me and bring your family," which is, you know, millions of people want it. And they're like, "Please, please, please, please." And I didn't do anything. So we had a private interview with him. And he said this to me. He said, "You worry too much about money. Period." He just pointed his finger like this. "You worry too much about this." He said, "Don't worry. Never rich, you know, like we think billionaires are the only people worth talking about. Never rich, but always enough." And it gave me permission that when I have a heart's desire, I know that somewhere from a larger spirit in me, or if you want to call it God, or you want to call it yourself, it will also invent the circumstances that go with it. I've often thought of women being pregnant. The body knows what to do. The consciousness knows what to do. The DNA knows what to do. You know, do we have some accidents with that? Yeah, we do. But for the most part, most children are born whole and complete. And I thought, I get it. We don't trust being whole and complete. We think something's broken in us. And I want to tell you, that's everything that I saw as a therapist. I'm broken here, I'm broken there. My mother made me break this way. Your mother didn't do anything to you except be who she is. And you can let go of that when you're finished playing Hello, Dolly, you know, and that's the role she put you in. You can play another role, but we don't know we can do that. So that's how I invented it.
So I want to recap this as we end this discussion. I want to just make sure I got all the important parts. So as I see it, you have committed to your truth. You have committed to living life the way your heart tells you to live it.
Yes, exactly.
And this has guided you perfectly.
It has
You
guided.
also are committed to working with women who are leaders. And you have a desire to help them because?
Because 30 years ago, the Dalai Lama was asked by a devotee of his, "What are we going to do? This world is going to end. We're going to nuclear war and we're ruining the environment." And the Dalai Lama smiled and said, what are we going to do? And the Dalai Lama looked at him and said, "Western women will save the world." That went through me like a shot. And I thought, forget coaching more men to be tougher and stronger and all of that. Western women, and women are feeling types mostly. They feel, they cry when they're moved, they cry when they're upset, they cry for joy, they open their hearts up, which we men are taught not to do because we are trained to be warriors who are out to kill and go to war and do battle. And if you notice all the games we give our little boys, they're all about killing. You know, I killed this one and I killed the monster and this and that. Women think that stuff is ridiculous. And then, here's the greatest thing of all. I was mentored by a woman who is a global leader. She, for 40 years, was the head of a project which was about ending hunger in our lifetime. It will end in 2030. The UN has already taken it on. So she got her job done. And grace of God, I volunteered in her executive office. I didn't know, I was just some kid off the street. And she taught me how she thought. And she thought brilliantly as a woman. It was different from a man. And over those years, I became fluent in the language of women and the culture of women, which is based on feeling, not on this endless thinking. And I think
her credit for her name and her work.
Her name is Joan Holmes. She was the president of the Global Hunger Project, and she has impacted the lives of millions and millions and millions of people. And you and I probably will live to see it because it's only 10 years, but our children will go, why in the world would anybody die of starvation? We don't do that. That's just ridiculous. And she's the one who brought that into being. And she's one of the most extraordinary people in the world. And then the thing that I saw about her was the minute she decided that she would take that job, within a year, she had transformed into one of the most beautiful women I have ever seen. And I'm not talking Hollywood. I'm talking about the glow in her face and her eyes and it was just incredible to see her, and all the things that women work endlessly for. Got to lose that last 4 pounds and whatever. Her body just slimmed down and she became a goddess like that. And I thought, oh, I see. This is not about working harder and not eating what you want. This is about changing who you see yourself as being so that you can become that person. And
I think that we're going to have you back on a number of occasions. I am just delighted to talk with you, Bill Lamond, champion of women leaders, an extraordinary author and thinker, a strategist, a fulfillment-based thinker, and teaching fulfillment-based thinking. Thank you for your time. Don't go away.
May I put a PS in for the women here?
Sure.
Yeah. Women will lead the world because they have relationship built into them. What's not built into women is first-classness. And that's opening now with the more than 100 women who are in Congress, and they're taking their place as first-class citizens. But in the same way that I felt don't go into Central Park, and I ignored that thinking on the slope and got my leg broken, women are feelers, and they're brilliant, and they're intelligent, and men make them wrong for it. Oh, she cried again. Don't be a girl, don't cry. God, if we don't do any of that and use our emotion, we're not human. And I've become a full human being doing that. So do I think I'm a girl? Do I act like a girl? No, I've become the best father in the universe. I've become someone that women really trust. And I've become someone who is pulling for the next leadership in the world will not be us men. We've destroyed the world with the way we've done it. We fight and we murder and we blow up things, and women just go like, what's going on with these people? So I want the people who are in charge of that to be in charge of the world. Thank you for letting me say that.
A lot of men are feeling intimidated by the idea that it's the woman's time. Can't we have a more inclusive concept as opposed to it being one or the other?
Yeah, well, one of the things I have going on with some of the women leaders is they're doing the same thing that men have done to women to men.
Yeah.
I don't like any of that. See, the thing that I see a world, by the way, one of my biggest prayers for 30 years in coaching women is to have men open our hearts again. Now, I'm very versed and a master of the whole starvation conversation because I've been in the Hunger Project for all of those years. And when a person is in starvation, they don't feel anything. And that's what has happened to us men regarding our heart. It's like, forget that, get the job done, and you've got to kill them, and you've got to do this. And you know, in our sports teams, yeah, they slaughtered that other team. I don't want anyone to be slaughtered. And we use that conversation, but there's nothing like, oh, I'm eternally grateful. I love you with all my heart, unless a man is looking for sex usually. And that's so small to give to a man. You know what I mean? It's like, we're people. That same boy had the same things that any girl had when he was born. They love the feeling. They love the touching of the face. They love being kissed. And then, you know, it's like, okay, you're a certain age, get over it. You're not having that anymore. You're going to go to Camp Lejeune and you're going to be as tough as can be. I have 2 brothers who are cops in Philadelphia. You talk about tough. Wow. But I didn't want that. And I know that when I really talk to a man intimately, I know that men don't want it too. They wonder, why are we in this ridiculous thing? About 95% of all the mayhem in the world is caused by men, not women. Period.
But can we work together as people? Is it possible? Is it?
I work with women. I do. I work with women. I'm not a drag queen. Excuse me for saying, they're fun too, but I work with women. And I'm considered to be a gentleman, and I'm considered to be a really good father. My children adore me because I have an open heart, and a lot of men are just about the rules. Yeah, I want that for every single man on earth.
And aren't the rules what put us here? You know, the fact that you can be free is because the highways are built, the roads are built, the bridges are built, the buildings are built. Isn't it that which gives you freedom?
No.
No.
What gives you is this: the conversations I have with myself, the beliefs that I believe, the things that I won't act with my true desire with, that I'm terrified that someone will think something about me. And all the ways that we men have turned into prosecuting attorneys for not having a great time in life. No, it's us. So, you know, people will say, well, why don't we pass a law about that? Because it doesn't work. I'm telling you, if you pass a law for starving people, You've ever seen a picture of starving people? I saw a woman one time from Africa in a big starvation there. A picture of her where there were flies crawling across her eyeballs. Now, if any fly ever tried to cross your eyeball, what would you do? You'd start screaming. She sat there while flies were crawling in and out of her nose. She had gone. And starvation is really, it's one of the most tragic things in the world because it destroys the soul before the body dies. And
so we must not allow starvation to occur. But I know that people listening will say, but here in the West, where we don't have starvation, isn't it because men are the way they are? Isn't it because of the societies that have been built to protect us here, as compared to places where that does occur with the flies crawling across the eyeballs?
That's what the culture says to you. Except men have also been really nasty with women, and men have passed laws against women, and men have not acknowledged women, and all they want to do is fight. And now my terror with women is a lot of the women leaders are saying, well, join the fight. I'm done fighting. I don't want to live in a world where people are fighting anymore. I'm done with it. Can you hear that? I'm the only man I know on the face of the earth who's done with fighting. Done. So I won't.
Yeah, okay, but you've made your case. We're going to a slightly bigger question. How do you explain the model of success that is so present here and so not present in places where men live in their hearts?
There aren't many places where men live in their hearts.
Okay.
One place that I know is Hawaii. That's why I thought I would go and live there, because the Hawaiian men are acculturated to have their heart. And I talked with a couple of big guys on the beach one evening, big muscle guys. They were the sweetest, kindest people I have ever met, because in their culture, their parents and their grandparents wouldn't put up with them being these tough people that we train in the white American culture. They wouldn't put up with it. And I thought, I'm moving to Hawaii. That's where my family is. And I did try it. And then I realized my life was still back in San Francisco because I had a lot of work I needed to do. And I'm here for a bigger game than making money. I'm here to see the world that we want show up. What are you here for? You know what I mean? I'm tired of billionaires being the only ones who get the headlines. I'm tired of the war-based headlines. I'm tired of join the fight. I don't want to fight. And I'm never going to do it again. Period. And that's what it takes. It takes for someone, including this one and that one, to stand up and say, I'm done. Don't smack me hard to say hello to me. Shake my hand or embrace me or do something, but stop punching me when you say hello to me. You know, all that stuff that we do. It's tough being a man. You know?
It's tough being a man with the stand that you have. Has it been tough for you?
No, because I follow my heart. And my heart takes me to the best place possible. It takes me to my heart's desire. And here's how I get my clients. I don't do big advertising, things like 50 blogs and 40 announcements on Facebook. I do what I do with women. And you know who refers everyone to me? Women. They'll go, where do you hear it? There's a guy who can actually hear us. Where do you hear it? Blah, 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 blah. And I owe it to my mom because we were blue collar and we didn't have much money. And she had 5 boys. And she made a promise to herself that no matter what, her boys would be gentlemen. And she trained us to be gentlemen. And I thank her from the bottom of my heart for that, because that was really the beginning of this journey.
I thank her too, because you are a delight to talk to. I can't wait to have another conversation. I can't wait to see the mail about this particular show. Thank you so much, Bill Lamond. He is a fulfillment-based thinker and strategist, and he gives that to others, and he's a champion of women. Thank you, Bill Lamond.